Well, today is a Beetlejuice and Agatha Harkness kind of day. And we're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch podcast.
This is the Geek Watch podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petry.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 228 of the Geek Watch podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's very own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petry.
Hello, Brian.
So, before we get started, we did miss a week, but we do have to talk about what happened last week, our in memoriam, and losing one of the greats of the genre, James Earl Jones.
Yes, it was tragic.
Yeah.
Remembered for so many things. And in every generation, he was remembered for something. I mean, Vader, Mufasa, Coming to America, everyone knew him for something.
Yes.
Even back to the 70s in his blaxploitation movie days.
Oh, that's where I was first introduced to him.
Mm-hmm.
The first movie I ever saw that had James Earl Jones was the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings. It's about a traveling Negro baseball team. And they would come into town and they would challenge another team to a game. And it was a great movie. It starred Billy D. Williams, another Star Wars alumnus, obviously.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor was in it. And not to be spoilery about the movie, I understand it's very old, but definitely worth checking out if you get a chance to see it. But one of the scariest scenes that I've ever seen in a movie in my young life takes place under a bleacher with Richard Pryor. I didn't know him as a stand-up comedian at that point because his type of humor, a young impressionable person of a single-digit age would not have had an opportunity to see. So I only knew him as this actor in this movie, and there was this moment that was absolutely terrifying.
Oh, wow.
But an amazing film, and I still have a copy of it on DVD. Great film. Probably my favorite baseball movie.
Okay.
Kevin Costner is not in my favorite baseball movie. He's probably in a lot of people's favorite baseball movies because he's made a bunch of them, including
but James Earl Jones could be because he's done several.
Yeah, he was in Field of Dreams.
And he was in The Sandlot. And
yes.
Yeah.
But an amazing loss, although in a strange way, we haven't lost him completely because he did sell the rights to his voice to Lucasfilms so that they can still use his voice for Darth Vader. In fact, it was his AI voice that they used for Kenobi. The miniseries that they did on Disney Plus, that wasn't James Earl Jones. That was a test of his Darth Vader simulated voice, which I had no idea until someone told me.
Wow.
So we have lost James Earl Jones, but he's still going to be with us in Star Wars and in spirits. But I did want to talk about that. Also, during our break, I went to see Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And I did want to talk about, not just about the movie itself, but there was a lot of background stuff with me involving this movie. And this was the reason why, of course, we've talked about you and your geek-colored glasses. For me, I couldn't have removed my geek-colored glasses watching this movie if I had tried.
Oh, good.
And the reason for that, Beetlejuice holds a very special place in my life. It's not my favorite film, but it was the film that came to me at a very unique time in my life. It was 1988 when it came out toward the end of the 80s. I consider myself an 80s kid because I was a kid in the 80s. But to tell you the truth, the 80s were probably the most miserable time of my life. During the 80s, I went from being 13 to 22. And there's a lot of changes that happened between those ages. There are a lot of things about myself that I know now that I didn't know back then. And trying to fit in, trying to be one of the guys was very difficult. And there was a lot of horrible, terrible things that happened to me in the 80s. I'm not going to bore you with all the details because I pay a therapist to bore her with all the details. But toward the end of the 80s, I had thought that I had found an identity for myself that meant a lot to me and had that basically just snatched away from me. And so I was really in a place where I did not know who I was. But I was desperate to find it, which meant I was desperate to fit in. And then this movie came around called Beetlejuice. Now, keep in mind, Tim Burton wasn't famous to anybody. Batman was still some distance away.
Right.
And so there was just basically this weird looking guy who made this weird looking movie with the guy that was in Mr. Mom, a comedy with desiccated corpses in it. Okay, this is what now? It's one of those things that if you're into it, no explanation is needed. And if you're not, no explanation is possible.
Yeah, you had Gina Davis, who had done Earth Girls Are Easy, and Alec Baldwin. I mean, what did he had done up until then?
Yeah, I mean, it was this weird comedy that had dead people in it. My brothers, they'd seen the trailer for this movie, and they're like, what the heck is this? And a lot of people did say, what the heck is this? But me, I knew there was something there I wanted to see. But I did also know that there was no way I was going to talk any of my friends or my siblings on coming to the movie with me. I went on my own to see it. It was the first time I felt comfortable being the weirdo, letting my freak flag fly and going the heck with it. I know this is something I want to see. I can't explain it. Nobody's going to understand why this type of movie would speak to me. I don't care. If they don't understand me, they just don't understand me. I'm going to see this movie. And I did more than once. And of course, I couldn't explain to my siblings why this movie meant so much to me, except this was a movie that was made for me. This wasn't something that I had to change who I was as a person and mask to fit in. This was something that fit in to me. And that's why Beetlejuice means the world to me. It was a watershed moment for me. And so these many years later, getting a sequel to it, could I pick this movie apart? Yeah, I probably could have if I wanted to, because honestly, you can pick anything apart if you really want to. And I'm not gonna. I don't care what's wrong with this movie. It was revisiting a very wonderful place for me. And yes, geek glasses welded onto my head. I don't care what's wrong with this movie. It was everything that I wanted. It was fun. It was revisiting characters that I hadn't seen in years and years, literal decades. And I had the time of my life. And I also saw it in my hometown of Beckley, where I saw the first movie. That was what I did. I could have seen it here, and I have seen it here since. But for my first time seeing it, I packed up and went back to my hometown to see Beetlejuice. Now, I couldn't see it in the original theater where I saw the first one because that theater had been closed and is now a Social Security office.
Oh.
However, there is a marquee theater, which is the chain, which meant that I could see it in what they call MXC, which is their best sound, the Dolby Atmos sound, and the brightest projection screen that they had. So I got to see it in style. And being in my hometown where everything has changed, everything of that town has changed. I can barely recognize the place. But
do they still have the big hole in the middle of the town? There's even like a Facebook page for the Beckley Hole.
yeah, but for me, revisiting that part of my life was important to me. And it brought me back to that time when, as a young man, I was like, who the hell am I? And it took me many years of figuring that out, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But that movie, Beetlejuice, was, for me, where it started. It was the moment when I was like, the hell with it, I'm going to let my freak flag fly, and it has been flying ever since. No rating or review on this movie. It is critique proof.
Excellent.
And I had the time of my life. And honestly, that is what fandom should be.
Right.
It shouldn't be about, let's pick this thing apart. And for me, it wasn't. I'm sure you could go online and find critical reviews. If I wanted to pry the geek color glasses off of me and I wanted to put this thing under the microscope, yes, I'm sure even I too, grumpy old man that I am, could find something to complain about. But not this one. No, I'm sorry. I can't. And hopefully I can take the momentum of that through our podcast going on, because I do feel like even I have gotten caught up in this idea of being critical and tearing things down to their essence to analyze them to make myself look smart. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people have fallen into. And I want to try to do less of that on this podcast. We'll see if I'm able to do that. But let's dive into the deep end and let's talk about Agatha All Along, because we got our first 2 episodes.
Yes.
This is going to be a return to a type of segment that we haven't done in a while. This is going to be What the Witch.
What the Witch. I
So
love it. What the Witch.
So,
And I'll tell you, I saw a little clip of Steven Spielberg, and he said that he was learning more from modern directors than he did from the greats, because they knew, and it's something that we've talked a lot very recently here on the last several podcasts about storytelling. And he said they knew that if they had a good script, that it all started with a story. It was about storytelling that they were going to have. And he brought up Everything Everywhere All at Once.
right.
And he said that I can learn from them that they know that it's about good storytelling. And when it came to Agatha All Along, I think we're getting that. I think we are getting classic storytelling here. They fooled us with that first. Are we going spoilery?
Yeah, let's.
Okay, we're going spoilery.
So if you haven't seen it yet, okay, what are you doing? but pause this, and this will be the last thing we talk about. So yeah, just pause it and come back after you've seen it.
I feel like with that first episode, they kind of hooked us, making us think, oh, we're going to get another anthology series, just like WandaVision.
Right.
We're going to get a police procedural, and then we're
Yes.
going to get sword and sorcery. But then no, we're going to start with the hero's call to adventure. Then we're going to get the assembly of the team. Then we're going to start off on our journey, and we're getting the classic hero's journey here. We basically got Ocean's 11. We're going on a heist. We have to assemble our team. We have to know what we're going after, and it's great. And we've got all these great actors. Audrey Plaza for a little bit, and then
Yeah.
Patti LuPone comes in, and they even get us some music in there so we can get her beautiful voice.
Oh,
I'm really excited about it, and I think they're doing a good job, and it doesn't feel like a Marvel thing, and I love that they got so many people coming back from WandaVision,
yes.
and it just feels like all the actors are having a good time. I feel like it, yeah.
Oh yeah. One thing that I love is when Catherine Hahn isn't like the center of the scene, watching her react I love it. She's amazing because the clock is always running with her. When the moment when somebody else is talking and she's not into it at all, and the way, she'll roll her eyes or whatever. She's not taking over the scene, but, again, she's acting in the scene even when she's not the center of the scene, which, a lot of them are doing. It's wonderful acting. One thing I loved about that whole crime drama at the beginning, and this wasn't something that I knew. I found this out later. This is a 1-to-1 parody of a Kate Winslet TV show.
What?
Yes. Mayor of Eastwich, I think, is what the name of the show is. And where there were scenes out of that TV show. Basically, Catherine Hahn is playing the Kate Winslet character.
Really?
And
I'm going to have to look this show up.
there are scenes taken out of the Kate Winslet show that they duplicated in the show.
Yeah.
There was definitely that nod there. Mm-hmm. One thing about it is there's also like a ton of Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
The library card is a huge one.
What is it?
Every one of those dates, one of them is Kevin Feige's birthday. One of them is Stan Lee's birthday.
Aw. Yeah. Well, I love the opening credits where they show basically all the witches in the last 100 years of movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. And I feel like we're getting homages to them throughout the
Lisa
TV
Simpson.
shows. Yes.
Lisa Simpson's, yeah. Because, of course, now Disney owns Fox.
Of course.
So they can certainly use the Lisa Simpson witch from the Treehouse of Horror.
Yes.
And it's funny because in the ending credits where they're going through all the books, those are actual books. And there are little passages in there that give you hints. And one that explains why the witches took their shoes off as they walked down the road. Because you have to do that. Nothing is supposed to separate you from the road. That's why to walk the road, you have to do it barefoot. Mm-hmm. And there's a little passage in there. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to notice it. That says that to walk the witch's road, you must not be separated from the road. You must take off your shoes. No rubber, no cloth, no soul, merely your soul.
Oh, and can we talk about Deborah Jo Rupp, who's famous
Yeah.
from That 70s Show,
Yeah.
who is always great in everything she does. Man, just I loved her. She just, am I supposed to know this song? And then she just joins right in. She just so go with the flow, and that was fantastic. And I love the whole town. Just no one left the town after they were traumatized by Scarlet Witch. They just stayed there, and they're living their lives.
Well,
and
some people did though, because one thing that you may know, again, this is one of those Easter eggs.
I didn't know.
If you look at the sign for the town. Mm-hmm. It has the number of the population. If you look at WandaVision's number, it's around 3,000. But in Agatha All Along, that number's gone down by around 700.
Oh, really? No, I noticed that at all.
And of course, you mentioned
that everyone's just indulging her. It's like, we try to help you out.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, because you were talking about that 70s show. Did you notice that she finds herself in the basement talking to people in a circle?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
you're right. They sure did.
Yes, and that wasn't an accident. They did that on purpose. But yeah, there are like tons and tons of Easter eggs. One of them, of course, is the library where the Darkhold had burned. That was from the end of Multiverse of Madness, where every copy of the Darkhold was burned and destroyed in every reality.
Oh, okay.
So somehow, even though Agatha may not have known that, something in her knew it, and that's why it was burned and destroyed in the library. Now, this is going to be weird for me to talk about this, but it makes a really good point on what has really impressed me about the storytelling of this show. And I'm going to talk about this by discussing Catherine Hahn's ass.
Okay.
That shows up in the show, because there's a moment where she pulls all these costumes off of her.
Yes, and she's naked and running around and like, how long have I been here?
Exactly. She just goes outside completely naked.
Doesn't even care.
Now, what's interesting about the storytelling there, it's not really played for laughs. It's not played gratuitously. And there are many times during that scene that subverts expectations, because there are moments all through that scene that are standard scenes where somebody turns up naked in a place where they shouldn't, that are immediately subverted. Best example, when the neighbor puts his coat over her and she just throws the coat off. How many times somebody's been found naked and they get the coat put over them and they get let off?
Especially in the hot girl born yesterday trope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially in witches lore. I mean, in every witch trial, that was, I saw her dancing naked in the woods. It was,
right.
I think we've both done productions of The Crucible, if I'm not mistaken, and that's a big thing. They dance naked in the woods. And
well, I mean, and that's one thing, a sidebar. How many times has phrases talking about burning and drowning and hanging all through?
And she says, that aren't there any new ways yet? Because that's, Witchfinder General always.
Like, because our kind don't tend to do well in courts.
Yep.
But again, that entire scene, for me, it wasn't gratuitous. It made sense. There were so many points through this where they subverted all the tropes of somebody is naked in a place where they shouldn't be, including, well, let's crop up so that you can't see that they're actually naked. And they were like, nope, we're just going to let her walk in focus, ass out to everybody. She didn't care. You shouldn't be making a big deal out of it. She doesn't care at all. And for me, strangely enough, this weird scene made me go, wow, this is some next level storytelling going on.
It's just a naked woman.
Yeah.
It's just a naked woman.
Yeah. And they're like, we understand what the tropes are, and let's have a laugh by subverting them. And again, that's next level storytelling.
And her awakening, her breaking out of the chrysalis of this spell and breaking herself. We could write pages on this. We could write theses on this.
And the thing about it is, after she goes back to the house and she puts on a robe that's purple, that has flowers and a snake on it, it's like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you guys keep doing. There are so many wonderful moments that you can tell that they're putting stuff in there, not necessarily calling attention to it, but it's like if you're looking for it, it's like, oh, that's interesting. And there's a lot of that stuff in there. And one of the things I have to say that I found interesting about the 2 episodes so far, they all made us think we knew what was going on with the teen. and then subverted that expectation, because now it's like, I'm not exactly sure, because I was pretty sure I knew who that was supposed to be. And now they've made things a little more interesting, because maybe that's not right. We all thought that this was going to be Wiccan. This was one of the sons of the Scarlet Witch, but they've done enough to make this say maybe this is Agatha's son.
Right. Yeah, something like that. But if it is, he's not acting like he's unhappy, like he's alone. It's as though he has family. So that's out of the ordinary. Someone who's out there seeking something, I can get anything I want. It's usually because they're alone or because something happens. It seems like he has family. He has a support network. So that's going to be something different and an out of the ordinary backstory for someone who's seeking something out. So I'm interested to see, because whoever is keeping it from Agnes, is she keeping it from herself? Did she put the curse on it?
Yeah. Again, another Easter egg. Oh, there's a bunch of Easter eggs involving the teen, which is you see a lot of references to Nathan Scratch, who is Agatha's son. You see a lot of rabbits, including Mr. Scratchy, makes a return. But also, it does seem like the teen knows a lot about Agatha, enough to make a comment about her that made her mad enough to kick him out of his chair in the fantasy world that she was trapped in. But also, obviously, there's something preventing Agatha from hearing him say his name.
Or any personal information about him.
Yeah. The sigil that seals his lips up is the same sigil that has turned up in some tarot cards that have been created for the show. You'll see different tarot cards. The little signature in the corner of the tarot card of the artist is that signature.
All right.
Also, you remember when they went to see, what was her name? Kale is her last name. I'm trying to remember what her first name is. She's a character from the comics. She has the shop. She's the herbalist and she sees the teen and says, was this another human sacrifice? Is this another child sacrifice? And the look on her face, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did she sacrifice her son? Is that his locket of hair in the brooch? Maybe so. Maybe part of how she got her powers is she gave up her son.
Right.
As a sacrifice. And now this possibility he might be back. So there's a lot going on in this show. And we are going to be getting 9 episodes. We got 2, and then we're going to be getting 1 until we get to October, where we are going to get 2 episodes again for the season finale.
Okay.
So it'll be a part 1 and a part 2.
Excellent.
So for a total of 9 episodes. So there's a lot. There's definitely
We've got some room. Good.
We got some room for story. Of course, the second episode, we're already on the road. So it seems to me the vast majority of the show is going to take place as they're walking along the road and the trials that they're going to have to deal with to get to the end of the road. And we have our antagonists, the Salem 7, which in the comics were the sons of Nathan Scratch, and so are technically Agatha's grandchildren. They're in hot pursuit, and Aubrey Plaza's character, what her relationship is with Agatha, which there are hints of what that relationship might be and relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
She did tell Agatha she'd like to see her horizontal in a grave.
Yep.
But that's going to be something that's going to be expanded upon. And my understanding is we're going to see development in all the Coven. We're going to get to see backstory on all of them. And they all have been set up with backstories.
It's exciting to see. Yeah.
Now, to be fair, there have been a lot of Marvel TV shows that have been really great at the beginning. They had a great idea and they, sort of Stephen King'd the ending. They didn't quite stick the landing, as it were. And the episodes started to decline in quality as they went along. And so this is a Marvel show. So to be fair, yeah, it might do that. But these first 2 episodes have got me feeling pretty good. We have the writers, the director of the original WandaVision, which is probably the best of the Marvel shows of the Marvel series. And I think that's playing within its favor. I think that's a good thing. And we're definitely going to get at least enough time to develop more characters. And they've planted enough mystery and actual mystery, not mystery box stuff. I mean, real mystery, which is a relief to see. And so there's a lot that this story can go, and where that takes us down this road, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 228. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petry, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.